Beneath these quiet waters lies a ghost valley, its houses deliberately demolished and its dead dug up from their graves, a macabre sign pointing to the tragedy of those who once slept in the earth. Between Yorkshire Bridge and Damflask Reservoir runs a beautiful 9-mile stretch of Peak District Road. But look closer and the scenery fades into a timeline of absolute horror. 4 centuries of executions, massacres and catastrophe. This is the 9 miles of tragedy. Right here, within the first mile, we unearth the first tragedy, or should I say 2, because we're at Yorkshire Bridge, a village built between 1938 and 1943, to house those evicted from their homes in the Ashopton and Derwent villages. The story goes that their homes were sacrificed so that millions downstream could survive and win a war. A war that hadn't started at the time, but eventually it came. As Sheffield's munitions factories roared and the dam busters trained overhead, a handful of villagers were quietly packing up generations of family history. Their homes were sacrificed for water, yet because the nation was fighting for its very existence, there was no time to mourn 2 small villagers. Their sacrifice became the lifeblood of the Midlands, but the tragedy is twofold. They gave up everything during a world war, only to be forgotten by the peace that followed. The next tragedy was absolutely shocking back in 1635. Driving up the A57 towards Sheffield, we're heading for a picturesque bridge over a rocky stream called Highshaw Clough, a place where drivers pull over and park their cars, and today a convenient place for a matrix sign. Centuries ago, locals renamed this spot Cutthroat Bridge. In 1635, a lone traveller was found bleeding. His throat had been violently slashed. He was carried to Bamford Hall, but died before he could ever name his killer. The mystery was never solved. It's a short drive to the next tragedy. It happened right here, in this lay-by, otherwise known as Cutthroat Bridge car park. This overgrown loop of tarmac was left behind when the A57 was straightened years ago. Mostly hidden by trees, it looks like a quiet place to pull over. But in darkest December 1995, this exact turn-off was a trap. Imagine sitting in the passenger seat of a car, watching these trees approach. You think you are on a business trip, but the driver suddenly veers into the shadows. From the back seat, a blade flashes. This is where Anthony Antonio and his accomplice pulled over to commit an act of absolute savagery. Inside the vehicle, Walter McCarthy was stabbed 52 times before being dragged to the bridge and decapitated with a samurai sword. Antonio later hid out in pop star Gabrielle's London flat while trying to burn the car and its blood-stained evidence. At the time, Antonio was part-time partner of singer Gabrielle. Exploiting that connection, he fled the blood-stained moors and drove straight to her flat in London. While she remained completely in the dark, Antonio used her home as a base to burn the vehicle and destroy the evidence. Perhaps this next one qualifies as a calamity rather than being a tragedy. It all starts with Henry Boot, the construction industry magnate, and his son Charles's country pile, Sugworth Hall. When, in 1926, Charles lost his wife, she was buried in Bradfield graveyard. Such was his longing that he built a tower, a vantage point to climb the stairs and look out toward her grave, probably with a telescope or one of those seaside viewers. And okay, it must have been tragic enough for him, but what followed in later years was a calamity. A cow entered the tower and inadvertently started to walk up the stairs, and as everyone knows, cows don't have a reverse gear. So it kept on climbing. How far it got, nobody knows, but it was well and truly stuck. How they got it down is not documented either. All we know is the stairs were removed from the tower to prevent it ever happening again. Today, if you drive this route yourself, you'll struggle to spot Boot's Folly. You may get a glimpse of it from the corner of your eye. A monument to love and a very unfortunate farm animal. So that's 4 tragedies in less than 5 miles. And this mile has none, unless you fix your gaze on the view to your left, and that innocent-looking stretch of water you might just be able to make out down in that valley. A valley which seems to follow our route, so hold that in mind, because the tragedy it resulted in you'll not want to miss, and we'll come back to that later. But now we'll take a little detour around the other side of the hill and discover the next tragedy. As the lane twists around the hillside, the scenery returns to a picture postcard calm. But down this quiet road lies our next tragedy, a story of a man who seemingly had it all. Behind these farm buildings is Ughill Hall, an imposing 18-room mansion. In 1986 it was rented by Ian Wood, a respected Sheffield solicitor. He lived here with his lover Danielle and her 2 young children. But beneath the surface of his successful life, Wood was unravelling. He had stolen thousands of pounds from his clients, and his mind was slipping. On the night of September the 21st, 1986, the mansion became a slaughterhouse. Using a revolver inherited from his father, Wood shot Daniel in the head. He then hunted down her 3-year-old daughter Stephanie and killed her instantly. Her 5-year-old son Christopher was shot twice and beaten over the head. Believing they were all dead, the solicitor packed his bags and fled into the night. Amazingly, little Christopher survived. Wood fled the country, heading straight to France, but the final act of this nightmare didn't end in a courtroom. It ended in a media circus. 8 days after the killings, Wood was spotted in Danielle's home city of Amiens. He had climbed 200 feet up the local cathedral and was clinging to a stone gargoyle, threatening to jump. It took French police and a priest 7 hours to talk him down. Extradited back to Sheffield, the high-flying solicitor was sentenced to life behind bars. We leave Ughill Hall and head back across the hill, rejoining the road above the valley. But before we continue to our last tragedy, we'll just double back a bit, up Horstones Road in the opposite direction, to a little monument at the side of the road, known as the Edgefield Obelisk. It looks like an ancient boundary marker, or perhaps a decorative spire, but this monument hides a quiet, heartbreaking sorrow. It was erected in the 19th century above a natural roadside spring. In 1832, a local child wandered out here and in a cruel, unthinkable accident drowned in the water trough. The obelisk was built directly over the spring, encasing the dangerous water in stone, a monument built out of pure grief, designed to ensure such a tragedy could never happen to a child again. We drive east on Hawstones Road, opposite Bradfield Dale. Down to our left along that valley is the Path of a Nightmare. On March 11th, 1864, the newly built Dale Dyke Dam burst. A colossal torrent of water rushed down the valley. It swirled around this very hill on Ughill Moor. This high ground was spared, but everything below us was obliterated. Within seconds, the wave wiped out Low Bradfield and Damflass village. It swallowed every remote farm in its path, tearing through the centre of Sheffield before finally exhausting its fury all the way to Doncaster. As the road becomes Oaks Lane, the view opens up ahead of us. It feels like looking out of a Lancaster bomber cockpit, aiming dead ahead between the towers. But these little stone towers belong to Damflass Reservoir. Built at the end of the 19th century, it sits as the final link in a massive chain of water, starting at Strines, the rebuilt Dale Dyke, Agden, and ending right here. The old village of Damflass, with its mills and pub, was erased from the earth. It was never rebuilt. The valley was already earmarked to be flooded anyway. A village drowned by catastrophe, then buried forever by engineering. We pull onto the Damwall Road, crossing the very boundary where a community once stood. Our journey through the dark hidden history of these hills ends right here. If you enjoyed that video, please smash the like button and consider subscribing.